Welcome, everybody. I would like to call the Monday, May 13th, 2024 Planning and Development Committee session. Please call the roll.
Sokaitis.
Here.
Foltz.
Here.
Bongard.
Here.
Munn. Here. Lencioni.
Here.
Gem.
Here.
Petrilla.
Here.
Warball.
Here.
Fessner.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Thank you very much. Starting off our agenda today, we have a presentation of concept plan for the Grove 5N024 Route 31. Planning, take it away. No, hang on. No, I'm sorry. I've got it wrong. I'm jumping back in and I didn't see. Before we come up, I'm sorry. We do have an omnibus today, and I am looking for motion for the omnibus.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Alderperson Munn, second by Alderperson Bongard. Please take the roll.
Bongard.
Yes.
Munn. Yes. Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Warball.
Yes.
Fessner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Sokaitis.
Yes.
Foltz.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Now that that's taken care of, let's move into item A, presentation of concept plan for the Grove.
Thank you. A concept plan has been filed with Frontier Development proposing a townhome development on the 2.5-acre parcel located on Route 31 near North High School. Proposed is rezoning from single-family to multifamily to allow for a change in land use from single-family to townhomes. 21 units are proposed in 6 buildings arranged around a private drive with a single driveway off Route 31. This project is at concept plan stage for feedback only. If the applicant decides to move forward with the project at the conclusion of tonight's meeting, they would need to file applications for rezoning and subdivision, and those applications would, a public hearing would need to be held and City Council would need to approve those development applications. Plan Commission reviewed the concept plan on May 7th. The commissioners commented generally positively regarding the site plan and layout of the buildings with front facing outwards. However, there was a mixed reaction to the change in land use. Some commissioners felt the location is inappropriate for townhomes given the surrounding single family. Others expressed that the use may be appropriate if neighbor concerns are addressed, particularly regarding drainage and traffic. At the public meeting at Plan Commission, about 50 residents were in attendance and 13 spoke in opposition. Most common concerns regarded density and incompatibility with surrounding neighborhoods, existing draining and flooding concerns, traffic impacts and safety concerns, light and noise pollution, wildlife impacts and tree preservation, and impacts on property values. There are a number of public comment emails and letters attached to your packet. We also received some additional public comment letters this afternoon. The applicant is also present tonight and has a presentation as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Welcome the applicant to the dais, or up to present. Actually, I'm going to take a second before we get started to make sure with a lot of people in the audience here today. So a couple things to highlight to make sure that everybody understands. One, we're at the concept plan level, so there's no requested action. The applicant has asked for feedback from the council, which, as a lot of people have seen, started at the Plan Commission and then comes to council. And council will go through and give feedback. This is not a public hearing, but with my judgment, with the amount of people that we have here, I am going to give an opportunity before council speaks for limited comments if the neighborhood would like to make them to help give the alderman, a firsthand view of some of the thoughts from the neighborhood. But understand this is not something that's up for vote right now. And with that, I'll bring it back to the applicant. Please state your name for the record.
For the record, my name is Brendan Penny of the law firm of Meltzer, Pertil, and Stell. My office is located at 125 South Wacker in Chicago. I'd like to begin by thanking you all for your time this evening and for allowing us to present this project to you. As I said, I'm here on behalf of the applicant, bringing before you a proposal for a new 21-unit townhome development along Route 31 on what is commonly known as Karsh property. Here with me today is Conrad Hurst, who is a principal for Frontier. He was the applicant in this matter to walk through the site plan and answer any specific questions you might have for this project. Again, this is an introduction to our team thus far. Again, this is a concept stage, so we will be expanding this, as we move forward. Myself, on behalf of MPS, Frontier, and WPK Engineering was instrumental in putting together the site plan that you'll see this evening, and will be so moving forward as well. Again, just to set the stage for this request, a summary of what this application is requesting from the city in terms of approvals. First, to rezone the subject property from the RS1 low-density single-family residential district to the RM2 medium-density multifamily residential district, which will has the requisite density allowances for the proposal that we're going to be putting before you this evening, and also to subdivide the property and create lots for each townhome building and common area outlots. Along with this request, there will also be a dedication of a portion of the property along the east property line alongside Route 31. That land is accounted for in our calculations of bulk standards and regulations for the underlying zoning district, which is important as we are not requesting at this time any variations from those standards or bulk regulations. Our intent is to meet those standards for the again, the RM2 medium density residential district. This is an aerial of the subject property. As you can see, it is vacant and unimproved and has been so for quite some time. It is densely populated by vegetation, trees, invasive species, and again, as part of the plan that Conrad will walk through with you, it is our plan to clear that out and pull the development in there while maintaining as much as possible the native species and the plentiful landscape buffer along the property lines there. Again, as you'll hear, there are some structural difficulties in terms of developing this property, which may have contributed to the long-standing vacancy that you see on site. Again, we'll walk through those and happy to answer questions as they come up, keeping in mind that this is a concept and studies are ongoing. This is a zoning map of the subject property, as you can see outlined in that rectangular red lining. Surrounding zoning districts are low density. So you have to the south and west, you have additional RS1 low density single family detached housing. And then across Route 31 there to the east, you have the residential estate district RE2. To the north, you have more residential properties in unincorporated Kane County, and further north, you have additional RS1 zoned residential properties. Again, the comprehensive plan for the city does earmark this area as continued single-family detached housing. However, the comprehensive plan, as noted in staff's report before the Plan Commission and before this evening, does note that the comprehensive plan takes into account flexibility to provide various forms of housing to meet a diverse market demand for housing, as trends continue the way that they have been, and for younger groups and younger families moving into the area. Again, the reason that this property has been earmarked, for a number of reasons, for this intended project is we believe that it fits within that flexibility based on the fact that, while we are slightly increasing the density allowances for this requested rezoning, we do intend on keeping the single-family character and nature of the surrounding area, which is fundamental and was stated several times throughout the comprehensive plan as a key goal for development in the future within the city of St. Charles. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Conrad Hurst, who will walk through the site plan with you and answer any questions you have. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Conrad Hurst. I live at 9 East Main Street in St. Charles. I'm here tonight to introduce you to the Grove, which consists of 21 three-story rear-loaded townhomes situated around a private central park with 96 total parking spaces. We took the inspiration for the Grove from nearby projects such as Park Place in Geneva and the Brownstones in our downtown. Both are successful examples of a traditional Muse product which offers many benefits when developing this type of site. It is an efficient design that allows for higher density with a traditional for-sale single-family product. This product and site plan allows for orienting the bulk of the neighborhood's vehicular and community activities inboard around a central park while leaving substantial green space for pedestrian circulation. Stormwater management and landscape buffering around the perimeter of the site. To be honest, we were a little bit surprised at the amount of attention that this concept has attracted. To us, this is a concept that is based off of the principles of modern land planning. It is something that we see being done in our own community and across the country. But I do want to take some time to address the concerns that were voiced by the community at last week's Plan Commission hearing. The most consistent concern that we heard was that there are existing stormwater management and floodplain issues impacting many of the adjacent properties. We sympathize with those owners, and I can confidently say that our team will work hard to ensure that this project, if approved, will not add to those issues for the adjacent properties. As noted in the staff report, all required stormwater volume for the proposed development shall be constructed on the property, which does mean that if this property is a contributing cause of the current issue, the development could improve the conditions, but at worst it will result in a neutral impact to the area. With that said, we are still in concept review and need to undertake extensive studies and engineering to determine how we will accomplish that. We have requested...
One second. Is there any way to turn up the volume? Yeah. Thank you very much.
You want me to start over?
Take it where you feel.
From the top.
Thanks, Conrad.
With that said, we are still in concept review and will need to undertake extensive studies and engineering to determine how we will accomplish that. We have requested no variances and understand that any development will be subject to all city and county standards for stormwater management and floodplain mitigation. Another significant concern is traffic. All vehicular access is on Route 31. There will be a new ingress and egress to the community, but Route 31 is an IDOT regulated roadway and they will have oversight on the design. Much like stormwater management, at this concept review layer, we do not know exactly what that will look like. Ultimately, a traffic study will be completed by us and or IDOT to determine what is the best result for this entrance. Whether that involves lane widening, acceleration and decel lanes, or any tools at their disposal, ultimately we will be at the will of IDOT design standards for functionality and safety. Listening to the balance of the concerns the other night, they appeared to be mostly related to density. While it is true that the density we are requesting is a requirement for a feasible project on this site given the hardships created by infrastructure needs, this design is also a product of modern land planning. As you look around the country right now, we're seeing a movement towards these types of infill projects to provide a greater mix of housing types. This home type is part of a diverse housing stock that offers options to meet varying income and demographic needs. From young millennials to seniors who wish to age in place without leaving their community, this community design aims to accomplish those objectives while honoring the character of the area and remaining compatible with surrounding zoning. Successful examples of comparable neighborhoods already exist throughout St. Charles. Got a zoning map here. For example, Fox Chase has a pocket of RM2 zoning immediately adjacent to RS1 and RS2, which are traditional detached single-family zoning, as well as RE1 and RE2 estate zoning. These surrounding land uses very closely mirror the surrounding land uses of the Grove. This is just one of multiple examples of RM2 zoning being successfully incorporated into the areas of traditional single-family detached zoning throughout the city. Thank you, and we look forward to your feedback.
Thank you very much. Before coming up to the council, are you finished?
No.
Okay. Before coming up to the council, I did want to give an opportunity if there was anybody from the surrounding community, please step up, state your name. We'd love to hear from you.
Ken Schoening, SCHOENING, 3103 Pendleton Court. We're adjacent to the property. Hopefully it's not too bad to tell a joke that I told last week. I feel like I'm before Congress, except none of you guys are arguing. But I wanted to go through some of the stuff. I've been a resident there for 26 years now, and I live adjacent to the property in question here. And, you know, the question I asked last week, and I'll ask again this week because we have a different audience, is why hasn't anyone built on there in over 20 years? And 20 years ago, I stood before people here for the same reason. And they had approved 4 single-family residents back in there, and each on a half-acre lot. And one of the issues was drainage. And in order to do that, they were going to have to raise the property substantially, which means it's going to drain into everyone's backyards. The STC engineers came out and actually looked at it and said we'd have to tear out the bridge underneath Abbeywood and then on the one under Greenwood and rebuild those to allow for drainage. And at the time, it was considered by the city that it wasn't feasible. So now we're looking at putting 21 units back there. And so I just don't think it's feasible. I represent the Redgate subdivision and some other people that are interested. I've handled the lights at the Redgate subdivision for 20 years now, so I know a lot of the residents, and everyone's under the same impression. It just doesn't fit the neighborhood. You know, when you go through the list, I tried to write down some of the things we saw last week or heard last week from people. Number one, there's a backup well for the city of St. Charles in there. So how is that going to be affected? I've kept that property clear back there for years so the city can get back in there and access the well if they need to, but I think that's a major concern. I know in the city there's ordinances that say the buildings can only be 35 feet high, but if you have to raise them 10 feet just to get out of a floodplain, what does that do? Now we got 45-foot high buildings in a residential area looking over, and then you start talking about the light pollution going into everyone's windows. You know, that property, one of the gentlemen brought up last week that, you know, we're going to try and keep some trees. They're all junk trees. I know quite a bit about trees, and they're all junk trees, and they're going to clear cut that land. And so one of the issues, well, we have deer in the backyard and one turkey, by the way. She can't seem to find her way. But there's, you know, there's a lot of birds nesting over there. There's eagles, there's hawks, there's owls. And so one of them is the wildlife. One of the issues, you know, I hear people comparing this to the Park Place down in Geneva. And if you look at it, it's a huge difference between there and here. Park Place is a couple blocks from all the restaurants, the shops, the cleaners, the jewelers, everything else down here. We're talking about putting basically a 4-story building in the middle of a single-family development that's been that way for years. And most of us, including me, I knew Mr. Crash when he was there, and I knew of the issue when I moved in that he was a junk collector. And I asked that question, so I'm assuming the city's going to clean this out someday. What's going to happen? And they said, well, it's single-family, so there'll be another home come in there. And so that's never happened. They cleared everything out, well, most of the stuff out. There's still a lot of bricks back there, but but anyway, it's always been that, you know, we're going to keep this the way it is, and we're not going to sit there and start building high-rises back there. You know, we talked about last week the noise pollution, the traffic congestion. You know, 31 has become, you know, quite a road. If you try to come out of Abbeywood and turn left and go north on 31 in the mornings when school is coming in and stuff, it's very hazardous. Gary was here last week, one of the guys that sits on the committee, Gruber, and his son got in an accident trying to turn out onto 31 in the morning. You know, and it's just not a safe place. And now we're looking at 2 cars per one. We're looking at 42 more cars. You know, we talked about the wildlife removal, snow removal, emergency vehicles getting in that small area. How are you going to get them in there? How's the school bus going to get in there? I don't think you're going to be able to get them in there unless we change something. And so when we look at this, I know on the drawings we say, well, we're going to fix the drainage. We're going to put a pond right there at the end, right on bordering my lot. And so now I'm going to have to pay for a mosquito abatement because now we're going to have water sitting in there. And now at least it sits over in some other people's property. You know, and I know that's selfish maybe, but we talked about, well, maybe we should put some sidewalks in. Where are they going to go? One of the residents brought up last week, it's like the bridge to nowhere in Alaska, only it's going to be the sidewalk to nowhere. Where's it going? You're not going to put sidewalks along 31. I just don't think it's going to happen. And so anyway, I just wanted to just give a overall, I probably didn't include everything from last week and whatever all the neighbors want, but I just wanted to at least give our impression of this. I don't think St. Charles has always been that community where it's been thought out. Everyone's done a great job, I think, of planning this. It was planned for single-family residential. Again, 20-some years ago, I stood before this, and everyone said the same thing. You're right, it doesn't fit that area. And that was for 4 homes. And now we're looking at putting 21 homes in there? I just don't think it meets the standards of what St. Charles is looking for. Anyway, thank you. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else or any other representative that wanted to speak on behalf of the neighborhood? Okay, seeing that it's not a public hearing, we're not encouraging everybody to come up today. We do have all of the comments and emails that were sent, and we've got reports on all the comments from the other day, so thank you very much for that. But with that, seeing nobody else who's prepared to speak, we'll bring it up to the council level. We're going to have discussion and give everybody opportunity to ask questions before asking for feedback for the petitioner.
I'll start.
Go ahead.
The 35-foot height, that does seem, I mean, to me, it does seem a little bit high as far as it's going to kind of stick out a little bit, I guess. I don't hate the concept, to be honest. I mean, I don't like land that just sits around and that it's unused. Obviously, there's a prior developer that contemplated putting single family there, but it didn't work out. Like, maybe something a little bit less dense, maybe not as tall. I do like the 40-foot buffer and the 30-foot buffer, the 40-foot to the south and the 30-foot to the north. I think that definitely kind of can limit some of the concerns that maybe some of the residents do have, assuming, you know, I don't know what the condition of the trees are. I don't know what a junk tree is versus a great tree. It's not my world, but detention seems like a real issue with water, but obviously if they were to do some, everything would have to get approved. I know a lot of times new development a lot of times helps water issues, but I don't love or hate it. There's some things that maybe I'd like to be a little bit different, maybe a little bit less dense and less high.
So since there were questions, let's just go down the line. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. The first one is more so regarding, let's see, the private road. So I don't know if you could explain a little bit more about that. There was some talk about 19 feet, kind of an overhang. It was creating less parking or more parking and kind of forcing it to be a one-way road. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more to that. I was a little confused on that myself.
Go ahead and answer that now.
Come on up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So the concept plan here, this interior circulation road
Yep.
is 28 feet curb to curb, which is the traditional city street width. And it was planned for two-way traffic, but our driveways were 18.5 feet long, and I think the comment came from staff to go to a 20-foot driveway, which would accommodate any size vehicle being fully parked in the driveway. And our solution to that was to just steal a couple of feet out of the road, turn it into one-way circulation, so we could have a standard driveway width, and still, you know, an adequately wide road to accommodate one-way traffic as well as the parking along the island on the interior there.
Okay, that explains that. And then regarding sidewalks, was there talk of putting it on Route 31 or as close to Route 31 as possible?
I mean, the sidewalk conversation along Route 31 came up as a comment from one of the plan commissioners last week.
And the reason why I ask that is because the gentleman did bring it up that was just speaking, and going back to his point, you know, over the years, I think the city of St. Charles has tried to create sidewalks so that eventually they will connect to something else versus just leaving them empty. So I don't know if that's part of the thought process of working to get some kind of sidewalk in there so that it will connect to other parcels later down the road or other developments.
I mean, obviously, any kind of pedestrian connectivity that we can create is going to serve as an amenity for this community. And ultimately, if you're able to create that connectivity to the path at large, then the community at large will benefit from that. What our thought process behind this little stub here was that it connects back to the greater trail system. That's part of the bike and ped plan. And, you know, it was really just a brainstorming idea that came to us through conversations with staff and exploring the site, because it's not materially important to the success of the development. It was just something that we thought would be an interesting conversation piece with that unused open space that the city owns back here.
And then the way it's laid out, where all the fronts are facing inward, Is that so the backyards and the back part of this whole perimeter is more appealing, more blending into the rest of the area?
Yeah, I mean, it serves a lot of purposes, and the biggest one is just functionality, right? It gives us the interior circulation here so that we can achieve the density that we have, but it also does orient the front elevation outboard towards the neighbors, so they're not looking at garage doors and balconies and all of that community activity.
And then I guess the last question, it might be a question for staff as well, but the PUD, why would you not want to do one? And I guess to staff is I know it's a smaller development, a smaller number of units. I know that we have control if we have a PUD, but based on the size and number of units, is it typical to keep doing a PUD, I guess?
Yes, a PUD is an option. With a PUD, typically there's some public benefit being offered in exchange for the granting of zoning.
Sure.
So if the committee felt it was appropriate, a PUD could be considered for a project like this. We would ask the developer then to identify what public benefits being offered by the project.
Okay. And then your thought on doing a PUD? Or not doing one, I guess?
To be honest with you, we started there for our concept application and just through conversations with staff, ended up getting to a point where we didn't need any variations from this zoning profile, so switched to a straight zoning. But, you know, we are at a concept review, and so there's no formal application made, and the opportunity is still there to explore any route.
And then one last question for staff based on what you were discussing regarding, God, how am I going to put this? You know, like a transitional buffer. Do we have any other smaller developments that are like in the middle of an area similar to what is being proposed today?
Probably the examples that the applicant presented in the Fox Chase area. There's examples of a couple of townhome developments that are within single-family areas that are integrated into neighborhoods.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so I have a question for staff. First of all, I think the actual townhouse drawings themselves, they're fine. I don't have architecturally, that's fine. The question is this the appropriate location for them, you know, switching zoning and all of that. But question for staff, this is currently RS1, is that correct?
Correct.
And then if we go to RM2, obviously you can build townhouses there. What else could be built there besides townhomes?
Yeah, so RM2 zoning would allow single-family, two-family buildings, townhomes, and multifamily buildings, but the density is limited to the number of units that's being proposed here.
Okay. So if they, okay. And then the height of it, like my colleague Alderman Weber mentioned, was 35 feet. Will the ground be lifted up for drainage? You know, is that going to be part of the development? If you know what I'm saying, are we going to go past 35 feet? Obviously, the building itself is 35 feet. If you start building up the ground to kind of get the water to go, are you going to be at 40 feet? What do you?
Well, I mean, based on how the building height is measured, 35 feet is the height that is allowed within that zoning. So that's baked. And I understand what they're saying, that if the site is raised, the building will be raised. At this layer concept review, I don't have the topographic or engineering to answer that question with any certainty. What I can offer is that this Muse product is very good at being flexible on these topographically challenged sites. One of the benefits of them is that I can build up on that front elevation all the way to the second floor and have an aggressive slope down to the back, effectively creating an English basement where the garage is, which will let me play with those topographies and grading without manipulating the actual height of the building from sea level.
Okay. And then just kind of throwing this out there, I'm just curious, have you kind of played around with different types of townhouses there, like a Delnor Glen for seniors type of thing, where it's more ranches, where it's lower, where it's more probably less traffic, I would imagine. Is that I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if that's something you've thought about.
Not so far as to draw it, but it's part of our thought process, and what we're really driving at here is a density that offsets the infrastructure needs of the city. There's a pretty extensive water main project, as we spent a lot of time talking about. There's going to be an extensive project to get the storm water and floodplain management mitigation issues handled, and that's all that we've uncovered in concept review.
So speaking of stormwater management, just listening to the Plan Commission meeting, there were a lot of concerns voiced about water issues and things of that nature. Is that retention basin what you have drawn here, is that enough capacity, or are you still kind of studying that, or maybe staff can answer that? My concern is this, that if you get started with this and you say, well, wait a minute, this isn't enough capacity per whatever code or ordinance, and we have a retention basin, I believe, over in that area, are they able to tap into that retention basin? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to understand that, how that would work.
Yeah, so this is a concept design, so we don't have a lot of engineering information to assess what's shown here. But we thought, based on our review, that the square footprint area of that detention basin appeared slightly undersized, so may need to be enlarged. But in terms of how it would interact with the drainage system to the west through the Redgate subdivision, that would require some further evaluation to understand what's going on currently with the existing conditions and drainage, and to evaluate if there's even any stormwater capacity that could be available there. But because it is city-owned property, potentially an applicant could present a proposal to modify that drainage area to accommodate additional stormwater detention. But that would require a significant amount of evaluation and analysis to understand what those modifications would be.
So for me, I'm just going to kind of throw it out there where I'm thinking. The density, I agree with my colleague. It seems a little dense, in my opinion. I'm kind of thoughtful of the concerns of the residents. I think a lot of them have valid concerns, especially on the height, density. You know, I know we're just looking at a rough drawing here, but I'm hesitant to support something like this with a zoning change. And my thoughts are maybe sit down and talk with the residents and see what they're comfortable with, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. Maybe work with the aldermen on that. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So I do have concerns. So I think that's probably a good, just for me, in my opinion, you know, if I was representing Third Ward, sit down and maybe see what works, what doesn't work with the residents. But I have hesitancy as far as changing the zoning at this point.
Yeah, sure. If you, go ahead. Come on, Ken.
I apologize for interrupting, but what?
State your name one more time for the record.
Ken Schoening.
Thanks. Okay,
I just wanted to clarify something so that everyone's aware of it. The city does not own that property. The Redgate subdivision owns the property to the south. So where they're talking about putting the bike path in there, this subdivision owns that. The city owns a piece of property right away to get to the well. It's on the kind of the northwest side of that property. So when we're talking about acquiring additional pond storage or water runoff, you can't really go south of there because that's where the subdivision owns that property.
Yeah, I guess my point with where I was going with that is I'm not a fan of, if the development can't sustain its own water capacity, I'm not a fan of start using city water detention base. I guess that's where I'm going with that. Is, you know, it should really be work within itself, right? So I'm not a fan of that.
And I appreciate it. I just wanted to clarify who owns what over there. So, thank you.
Okay.
I'm done. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Russ or Ellen, I had a quick question regarding the adjacent zoning. So, refresh my memory. I know you're not an attorney, but under practice or under the law, if a parcel is rezoned, does that put neighboring parcels at risk of, like, for instance, say this gentleman's house, he's your adjacent, correct? Say his house came up for sale and it was acquired, could his property be more likely, you know, rezoned and also similar types of developments could be put on it. So does it risk adjacent properties is what I'm saying?
So potentially, if there is a rezoning of a property, the likelihood of adjacent property to it being rezoned to a similar zoning district is more possible.
Higher.
So when you introduce a land use change to an area, it creates a potential argument for adjacent property to be made part of that same zoning district.
Right.
But that type of request would have to go through a process similar to this, and findings would need to be made as the appropriateness of the zoning to a specific property.
Right. Right. And again, I know there's a process, and we don't have a crystal ball on whether that would happen, but so that was something that I had on my mind, and I was a little concerned about as well. We're creating a situation where neighboring parcels might be at risk, if you will. Again, it's the future, it's unwritten. But Ellen, maybe you can answer this too. I had a question about the inclusionary housing. I know this is just a concept, but in the staff report, the developer mentioned they would want to add to the trust fund, correct? There's no desire to add units?
Yeah, that's correct. They're proposing paying the fee in lieu.
So, it's my understanding that only a couple months ago, didn't we instruct staff to be more vigilant in terms of pushing for units rather than cost? Was there any discussion at all? I know, again, where this is concept, but I was just curious, is that still to be determined?
Yeah, I think that's part of their concept proposal, is they're proposing paying the fee, but if council has feedback on that item, now would be the time to express that.
I mean, if it was the will of this council to push that, I would say let's continue to do that for units. But again, high level though, I think the density is a little too high, and as my colleague said as well, I agree with them. I'm not going to repeat what they said, but that's where I am at this time. So if we could maybe see something less dense and get some other information on the inclusionary housing, for me, that would be helpful.
Over to you.
Well, I've heard a lot, obviously, about this topic, and I like the idea of developing that land, but hearing from my residents and constituents and from my colleague, Alderperson Lencioni, we've heard a lot about doing something there, but as it's a concept plan, and we look at the types of housing that the city might need. So one of my thoughts was, have we reached out to realtors in the area and saying, people are attracted to St. Charles for a large number of reasons. Are there other, maybe staying in the RS1 zoning option that could be considered? I know it's a relatively small parcel of land, but if there's some other option to stay in the RS1 that might be doable to kind of meet the concerns and address what we're looking to do with that property. So just as this is a concept, something to think about as we refine it with all the things that have to be dealt with. Are there more concepts that maybe could be proposed for the use of that parcel? Just something to kind of think about as we obviously weigh all the decisions, and I know this is at the very beginning of the process, a lot of things to deal with, traffic, water retention, keeping the trees, but are there other opportunities for types of housing that would stay in the RS1 zoning district that it currently is? So that would be my comment.
Okay, thank you very much. And even though being the chair, you're asking as an alderman, giving comments, I think it's an absolutely terrific looking development, but I don't think this is the place for it. I think it's reasonable that the neighbors have spoken, and I think it's reasonable they had expectation of single-family housing in the current zoning, and I just think this is too dense. Terrific idea, I just don't think it's a place for it. Those are my comments.
I had a couple of questions. First, one is for staff, and that is about the sidewalk comment. I'm just curious what the plan, I don't remember what the plan is with the bike ped plan in this specific area, like how that touches this parcel. If anybody can speak to that, if there is anything.
No, I don't think there's a specific plan for bike path improvements along this stretch.
There isn't anything, okay. And then for the developer, I have a question regarding something that Alderperson Wurmball asked about, any type of retirement living. Are there opportunities for modifications in these units, like elevators or things like that, that would attract that demographic to make it interesting for that type of population as opposed to somebody else?
Yes, absolutely. That is one of the benefits of this home type is the flexibility that it offers. And you'll see that in the communities that I referenced, whether it's the brownstones or Park Places, they'll just do a stacked closet, and that will make it very easy for somebody to option in a residential elevator, and then alongside of that, you get all the maintenance-free amenity style of a townhome community, so they're not mowing the lawn, shoveling the driveway, taking care of the driveway or roof maintenance. So it is a good option for age-in-place seniors.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to make a comment about, Fox Chase is my ward, and we do have a really good cohesion with single-family homes, some large estate homes, and two very nice two very distinctly different townhome environments, one of which is a fairly dense area, actually, that does tend to attract more of a retirement age group, I think. And it has a small ingress and egress to it. It is near a high school. It has a lot of similarities to it. And I think there is something to be said for that integrated type of community where it isn't all one type of homogeneous home, grouping of homes. But I do understand the density question here, and it is, you do have only one type of home where you are. I would just like to see some open-minded opportunities for change where the market does show that around the country people are looking for less maintenance, for more things for people who are coming right out of school, trying to build families, looking for more entry-level housing, and just making sure that St. Charles has those types of housing is kind of important if we want to bring families into the community. So that's all I have.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
Sorry. In addition to all of the benefits that we see from this product type, the real reason that we're driving at the density that we are is because of the hardships of the site. And so in order for this project to be feasible to us, we're going to need this version of the density or something very, very similar to it, which means potentially we can play around with the design and aesthetics and all of that to try to get it to better integrate into the community. But if developing this site is going to be feasible for us, then this is the density we'll need to offset a lot of the hardships this site presents. So I just wanted to, respond to that.
That's a good segue. So what's the projected price per unit?
I'm going to give you a big range because
That's
we're in
fine.
concept,
Very big.
and there's a lot of things that we need to define before I can get to this is what they're going to cost. But, they're going to start in the mid-4s, and depending on finish levels and option packages and et cetera, escalate easily up into the high 4s, if not low 5s.
Okay.
Depending on how long it takes us to sell through the project, because then you got to put price escalations on there, so there's a lot of factors that go into that.
Perfect. My only other question was kind of to where Jamie was going, and this might be for Russ or for Ellen, of when Fox Chase was being put together, when the concept was going, you have R1, you have R2, forgive me, was that all done at once, or was it we're doing this chunk and then this chunk and then this chunk as time went on based on what the market was responding to, because there's a lot of similarities that you could see potentially coming?
Yeah, now Fox Chase is a very large project. It was all initially planned for certain land uses and mix of development, but over time it was changed as individual parts were developed. The market conditions changed and the housing needs of the community changed. So it did adapt over time.
Okay. So our ward of Fox Chase, where I live with you. I agree with some of the concerns about the density, the height. I think that those are fair, obvious points, and there's a packed room of people here with similar concerns. But I think this is an opportunity to potentially talk about what we want to do, where you want to go in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because chances are, as housing demand continues to be there, as you have developers looking at this type of property, this community where people want to be here, this particular spot has a lot of similarities to where Fox Chase, where I live, and your proximity to North High School, your ability to potentially walk, bike, et cetera. And if this project, doesn't necessarily fit for whatever the reasons are, the reality is it's probably going to continue to be a question that comes up of, people might want to do something with it. So where are we going? And, if this isn't the right fit at the moment, where do you want to be potentially a year from now? So I know it's not exactly the same as Fox Chase, but I keep coming back to there's a lot of similarities, and that was a bigger project, but this could potentially also be something similar.
Thank you for your presentation, the time you put into this, for sure. My concerns are very much similar to everybody else. The big one obviously being the drainage issue, to me is the biggest concern. If there was a problem 20 some odd years ago when they brought in IDEA, and that problem probably is not most likely going away, and who knows if it will ever go away. I do have concerns for the residents there about noise. I do have the tranquility for what they bought. When I have a feeling when residents bought in that area, they were buying a certain piece of property because they did not want to feel crammed in. They did not want to feel kind of like they wanted the St. Charles experience, but they wanted to be a little bit on the outside, kind of looking in and having some peace and having some quiet. And I don't know what this will bring, and that is a major concern for me. I kind of agree with Alderperson Lencioni here. It's a wonderful design. I just don't know if it necessarily fits this spot, and I'd have a hard time supporting it at this time.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I guess it goes back to what the comprehensive plan says. We just redid this, I forgot, 10 odd years ago, and we discussed all these parcels, and we basically agreed we want to keep it the way it is in the whole area, which is 4 units compared to 21. Could you put 5 in? Maybe. I might be okay with that, but you're going from 4 to 21. I understand there's issues with the property, but I could not support this project as presented tonight. It's just way too dense. It doesn't fit the neighborhood, and my job is to listen to the residents of St. Charles. And the fact is, they have issues, they have concerns, and I respect their concerns. So I'm not going to go on, but I could not support this proposal as presented tonight because of the density issues. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it.
No, excuse me, Mr. Chair. I just want to make one clarification.
Yes, please.
There was a comment regarding the property to the west of the development site.
About ownership.
Yes.
I forgot about that. Please speak to that.
So that property, including what has been referred to as the well site and the open space areas within the Redgate subdivision, the city is the owner of those properties. However, they are part of the Redgate subdivision, and there's a drainage system that serves the subdivision that's located there, but the city is technically the owner.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Is there anything else at this time for this agenda item? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we are now at item B, recommendation to approve a resolution adopting a First Street Plaza special event policy. Take it away.
All right, one moment. I got a quick presentation here. As the community knows, we have a brand new plaza here in the downtown. Over the past few months, maybe I'll let everyone.
Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate all of you.
Not only did that not but the timing, not with the big man.
Right.
Good day. It was great.
Thank you all. We do need to continue with our meeting, so as you guys, if there's any discussion, we do have space out in the hall for you.
It was pretty good.
Thank you all for coming tonight, but I would like you to continue conversation out in the hall so we can carry on with the meeting. Thank you all very much. I think we're just about right.
Yeah. Background voices died down.
I think we're good now, Derek.
All right. As everyone knows, we have a new plaza here in the downtown that is now open and being enjoyed by the public. Over the past couple of months, city staff has got some inquiries from nonprofits or people saying, what is planned for the plaza, what activities are going to be out there for this year. So staff thought it was necessary to have a policy that would kind of guide us over the course of the next couple of years on how to use the plaza. So staff did prepare a draft. I know this is something that hasn't really been discussed with council, so we are really looking for your feedback. This would be a policy for 2024. We do think that we'll go through this first summer of events or first year of events, and then we'll probably have to reevaluate it and see what worked, what didn't work, and what needs to be expanded for 2025. That being said, we're trying to keep this small here for this year. We don't want to do too much out there. We don't want to have some mega event where we don't really know how the logistics are going to work. So we kind of want to tiptoe in this. One of the things that we wanted to do in this policy is limit who could actually be an applicant for utilizing the plaza space. So we wanted to use organizations that we trusted and knew could pull off an event and was well run. So with this policy, it would be limited to only the St. Charles Business Alliance, St. Charles Business Alliance, St. Charles School District 303, the Park District, the Library, and the Chamber of Commerce. Of course, the biggest community here the biggest organization that utilizes our downtown for events is the Business Alliance. So just a little update on them. They are planning on utilizing this space for this year for all their events. So SCC Live, that's where the bands come out and play in the public area for anyone to enjoy. That is going to be out there on the plaza every Wednesday and Friday night for everyone to enjoy. And then, of course, Fine Arts Show, Jazz Weekend, BU Rock Hunt, Scarecrow, and Holiday Homecoming. All of those events are going to incorporate the plaza. So there are going to be events out there. Some of the key points of the policy that I will go through, and this is not an extensive policy by any means. First of all, we have an existing special events committee, which is headed by our police department, and each city staff or each city department is actually part of that committee. So any event that was going to happen at the city, in our downtown or on the plaza, it's going to go through that special event committee already. Furthermore, looking at the plaza space itself, any event that would happen would be free and open to the public. There would be no ticketed events. I think that was said when we went through the outdoor dining that we wanted to keep this open for anyone to enjoy. We didn't want to block any part of it off. Any event would be restricted to the permitted area. That's where the map on the screen comes up, and that would be the blue area. The red area, while it's the First Street Plaza, a lot of that is taken up by outdoor dining, and then the other part of it needs to be open for emergency access. For things like Scarecrow, we don't mind if there's like little scarecrows around in the red area, but we don't want to have vendors in the other spaces simply because there's not room. There would be no food vendors. I know we've already got some inquiries as far as can I have an ice cream cart out there. We don't think that would be fair to the surrounding businesses to allow that. No alcoholic beverages. And then this is kind of a big one that wouldn't apply for this year, but for next year. Applicants must apply for the plaza by January 31st of each year. And the reason for this is to ensure that events are properly planned. This is going to be in the middle of our downtown. It's going to have a lot of public attention. We certainly don't want someone that says, I want to throw an event in 2 weeks, because we know just from experience that's not going to be a very successful event. And then also to avoid scheduling conflicts. We think that these should be planned well in advance so that everything is marked out, so that we have days where we have events and then maybe we have days that we don't have events. With that being said, that is kind of the key points of the policy, and I can take any questions.
Cool.
So, 2 questions. The first is why just for why not make this policy for the next 2 years? Only because there's obviously so much going on. We're still getting our arms wrapped around outdoor dining, and my hunch is there's not a real motivation to go out and move past D303, the city, the library, so is there a reason why you guys are recommending kind of this window for approval?
We may end up where we extend this further, and that's fine as it is. We just didn't want to lock ourselves into it and just allow for our conversation, in 8 months from now.
Okay. Can you give me an example of, from an economic development, what can we expect from a vendor, event planner that isn't what we traditionally see out there? What would be the most likely ask or request to use that space that isn't?
Right. So I think the one that I've gotten probably the most is some type of beer festival to be out there, which, that could be fantastic, but there's a lot of logistics that go into that. And then that's also something that you would probably have to fence off because of the alcohol barrier that would be required. So those are the type of things that need months in advance to really plan and think out.
Okay.
Alderperson Warble?
Yeah, so I think this is a good starting point to get started with this, and we can see how it goes. One of my questions is, for the events, do you have an idea of how often that plaza will be used? Every weekend, once a month? What are you thinking as far as that?
So for 2024, it will certainly be used every Wednesday and Friday night for SCP Live, and then the other Business Alliance events. We don't have anything else that is planned at this time. There could be something that would pop up, probably something that would be on the smaller side of things. I think, one small event that has been discussed that perhaps we could do is some type of tiny car show if someone wanted to put cars or motorcycles out there. That doesn't require any type of huge logistical push.
My next question is, the cost of the permit is $500 plus additional costs, city-related costs. And then down below you have, if there's damage, if the organizer damages something at the plaza, they'll be assessed separate fees and all that stuff. Are we going to get a deposit, or are you going to chase them down for the money? How's that going to work?
Well, they would be required to get insurance, so hopefully that would kick in. But you do have a good point that maybe we should look at some type of
I just
for that.
throwing that out there, maybe consider it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. To Alderman Warble's point, I mean, I don't really want to know if I want to have something down there every weekend. I mean, I think we need to leave it open for the residents.
Yeah.
I mean, at least one weekend a month, I don't think we need to have something down there.
Yeah,
that's just a thought.
No, that's good feedback and something to think about. I think this summer we're going to have plenty of weekends where there's not going to be an activity. But next year, when maybe we're more equipped to have events, there could be more requests, and we'll have to maybe build that into the policy.
Yeah, besides this, it's a good idea. I like it. I just want to make sure it's not something there every weekend, so people can't even just go down there and just do nothing. Okay. Thank you.
I had a question about a couple of things. So why are we choosing only these particular organizations and not including maybe some other proven 501c3s that have worked with some of these? I know that the Park District has certain organizations that they work with in some of their parks and that we've allowed. I'm just curious why we're not including some of those that have been proven, not just just any group.
We stuck with the taxing bodies, especially the ones that do have events, and then of course the St. Charles Business Alliance, because they're the ones who actually do a majority of our events in the downtown, and we really want them to be the testers for that. And when you start, asking, well, which nonprofits do we include? I think it's kind of this never-ending thing. You let one in, and then another one's going to one in. Why this one, not the other one? Which is pretty easily defendable. Why you would want the Business Alliance included in this group.
Okay. And the only reason that I ask that is because to Alderperson Silkaitis' point, when you say, you don't want to have something where it's taking up the space every weekend. I mean, these events are for the public, so it's not taking it away from the public. It's actually giving them an event to be around, not necessarily taking away the entire space, but offering them something to do in this public space. That's just my thought process. But I guess this also would mean then, based on some of the restrictions that you're imposing in this proposal, that we wouldn't be able to do something like a Kris Kringle market or a farmer's market or any of those types of things because of the offerings that they have.
Yeah, so the Kris Kringle market, I did inquire about that because I'm not familiar with the process. That is something that if it was the city, and we could say this was the city doing, that we could do. I don't know if they would be interested, but we're at least going to ask. As far as the farmers market goes, I know that came up last week. I did reach out to the organizer of that. They said that they were not going to be interested in that this year. They would maybe look at it next year. But it is a good opportunity to point out that, you know, we really don't want people driving on this plaza, and that's something for a farmer's market where they're going to want to drive their vehicle up, pull out their tent and their table, and drop everything out. That's really not something that we feel is safe or to have, we'll say, 15, 20 cars out there doing that with people walking around. So it's not really ideal for that, but if there, you know, there could be something small like that down the road. It's just, you know, how do we do it? We just kind of want to tiptoe into this.
Yeah, okay. Points are taken on that. I wasn't saying necessarily those specific organizations or those exact things, but something like those things, you know, like pop-up types of vendors or things like that. So that's all I wanted to ask about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Derek, so at the end of the day, from reading the policy, the Special Events Committee is really sort of the governing body of this, of issuing fines and determining if there's damage and things. So, and that's through the police department? The police department that governs that? Okay. And then I think to Jamie's point too, you mentioned, I mean, I was thinking of the Arts Council, for instance, but, you know, why didn't we include them? But I can imagine, to your point, that as this evolves, you know, some of these ideas could be taken up under the umbrella of the Business Alliance or the city or what have you. So we don't necessarily have to codify those specifics. But so, yeah, again, to Brian's point too, if there's damage or, again, the Special Events Committee is going to have like regular oversight to make sure that, okay.
We already have the infrastructure for this, so all special events that come before you, that goes to the Special Commits Committee already, so.
Right, okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking of like, you know, just thinking out loud of, you know, what if somebody tries to paint or put chalk on the brick or something like that? That would obviously be a no-no, and we would stop that. Okay, cool. So it sounds good to me. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Alderperson Morville. This is awesome starting point. I think this is perfect for this year, especially as the kind of things you've figured out. Personally, I'd like to rethink the no food vendors maybe in the future. I think it'd be awesome if restaurants that aren't directly located, possibly in First Street Plaza, could have a time to do like a Taste of St. Charles type of thing where they could bring a small sample down to the plaza on a weekend if they want to showcase their restaurants that are somewhere else in town but not necessarily in the plaza. It might be great to help promote some of those businesses that don't get that access. Again, I don't know what that would take, but I just look at that as a prime location to help bring community people down and help promote businesses that aren't there. So just something to rethink in the future, but for this year, I think it's a great start. Thank you.
Thank you. Two questions, Derek. First of all, would the council for any event we would have final say so regardless?
Correct.
Right? And then secondly, I just feel like this is a really, you know, practical approach, at least for this first season. You know, maybe as requests are put in, maybe it's something that we discuss at a winter workshop where, hey, all these people wanted to do these things, and then we can have a different, you know, conversation. But I think this is a really practical way to at least start us off. I don't even know if the solar panels have even, you know, taken in enough solar power yet to even turn on a light. So I think it's a good way to start.
I have one comment, and I think that limiting the groups that we're putting on events down there for the first year especially is good. But I also want to say, because not a lot of people are going to think about this, being really careful about events and who you let as far as for-profit vendors come into this space. Because there's nothing more frustrating, say you got a clothes vendor, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, we're going to have this awesome sidewalk sale. And next thing you know, somebody comes in to buy, you know, clothes from you, and the city, by putting this magnificent event down there, gives somebody an opportunity that was thinking they were going to shop with you to not. You know, people pay rent to be in these areas too, and so I think, and I'm not saying it's an absolute, but even talking about, hey, it'd be great to move a farmer's market down there. Well, I can promise you that when you own a supermarket that's really close to that, and you are going to lose your customers to this farmer's market that the city has decided to put there, that can be frustrating. I've entered into that situation before. So just think of those things, because there are people who pay rent, who pay property tax to be there. You know, that just consider those things and be careful putting for-profit vendors into the space.
Understood.
Chair Lanciani, I had one question. Or actually, two.
Go ahead.
Now I forgot where I left off here. Organization. So for item number 4 under the rules and procedures before, it said the city can reserve at any time. That makes sense, obviously, but that does not include other organizations such as Business Alliance, Park District, and School. They all have to go through item number 2, which is the procedure, $500, et cetera, correct?
Correct.
And then if something like Kris Kringle were to come up, or Kris Kringle Market, we already have a January 31st deadline. That's why the city would have to take it on, or do you bypass that if another organization wants to take it on?
I think that the January 31st, that would really only apply to events for 2025, since we're already past.
Right. So. Okay. Thank you.
From an economic development standpoint, what is the ideal number of weekends from your perspective of that space being utilized by somebody?
Purely economic development?
You're the economic development director, and if you're looking at that space going to get the impact that we were hoping and to help everything, what usage are you ideally looking for?
I would say we would want something out there every weekend. If I'm purely looking at it from an economic development standpoint.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, not every event has to be massive, right? It could be, you know, a couple of bands that play out there just back to back.
So I'm fine, you know, if we're going to take this route. I think we do this often. We kind of come up with an initial idea of a policy and we tiptoe around, you know, and then we'll come back to it. I think that we're going to run into, we don't know what we don't know yet, you know, and this feeling of wanting to protect a little bit about, you know, making sure there's enough access to it or who's on the space. I think that's going to take time, but I want to be mindful of staff and particularly your role of here's this great venue that we have and how we're trying to draw people in, but also balancing, you know, some of the wishes up here of how much and who's using it, but having this idea of, you know, how you want to leverage the space and how to, you know, complement the businesses, particularly in our downtown footprint. So.
Move for approval. Second.
Done. There you go.
Were we looking? Yes, okay. Who moved?
Me.
Okay. Brian. The second was, so Wirball, and the second was, Petrillo. Thank you.
No, I made the motion. He seconded.
First and second.
Sure. Well, we'll call the roll.
Bonjard,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Gem,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis,
Yes.
Folk,
Yes.
Awesome, that passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to C, recommendation to approve a resolution accepting the downtown parking study.
Thank you. So, again, I'm going to have a short presentation here. This plan was already presented to a council committee 2 different occasions, so I'm not going to go back through the whole presentation again, but just to hit the highlights there, we did extensive public engagement. We did focus groups, 4 public open houses, 1 business survey, 2 community surveys, 2 presentations to committee council. The consultant completed the study, which included a parking inventory, occupancy data, existing conditions report, public comment and survey results, future development, and then recommendations. I'm really going to be touching on the recommendations of the study as a whole. Just to essentially sum up what staff's interpretation of the downtown parking study is that we do have adequate parking here in the downtown, but dependent on future demand or future population growth, commercial development, residential development, that could change. This study also identifies specific areas where parking is over practical capacity, but the city can implement other measures to make it a more enjoyable downtown parking experience. So jumping to the findings and recommendations, part of one of our surveys came after we did the release of the draft plan, and we asked them which one, we asked people who took the survey which recommendations they actually thought would be the most effective. And this is the list top to bottom, 1 to 11, of what came back. I'm going to go into some of these in a little bit more detail on the next page. The green ones are the ones that city staff feels that we can try to implement immediately. But you can see the parking space availability signs is at 50%, shared parking potential 46%, wayfinding and signage improvements 42%, and then I'll let you guys scan down the rest of them. Before I jump into each one of those individually, one recommendation that did come out of the study that staff does want to implement is just future counts. So they did recommend that on an annual basis we should do additional counts just to see how things have changed, because we are a community with a lot of growth. We have new restaurants, new developments occurring. There were some, well, I guess the consultant did come up with a really good framework for how to do these parking counts, but of course it could be better. Some of the things we learned via the study was that some people thought that it should be a little bit longer, that they should have done parking counts up until about 8:30 or so staff can accomplish that. And then there are a couple streets or a couple areas where they felt that parking should have been counted as well, because people who are coming to the downtown are also utilizing those spaces. So we will incorporate that, and we will do future parking counts this summer. Looking at the recommendations, staff is kind of took 5 here that we've already kind of made moves on or will make moves on. Number 1 is the shared parking potential. Not to jump ahead, but our next agenda item is a shared parking agreement with the library for their parking lot, so I'll kind of put that one on hold. Wayfinding and signage improvements. We do have money in the budget to do that this year. Originally, staff was thinking that we would hire a consultant to do this. But now we think we could actually do it cheaper and faster if we just did it in-house rather than going to a consultant. So that's something we'll look to implement or get started this year. The parking space availability sign, so that would be number 3, which I have a photo of. That was, of course, the one that was most asked and the most popular one when we did the survey, and honestly when we did the public house or the open houses. So that is going to take a little bit of time, and it is also more expensive, but we do think it would be effective just because so many people in our big deck felt like they did not want to enter it because they didn't know if there were spaces there or logistically. But we do think that if we had this at the bottom, they would feel comfortable going all the way up to the top. One part of this would be potentially connecting it to an app. We cannot guarantee that, but that is something that we would put in the RFP when we were looking for a vendor that offered this. Improve alternative transportation options. This is something we've already kind of started. There are some ideas that the staff is working on, and of course we have the pedestrian bike plan, which we just passed. So we kind of do have a blueprint on how to make this happen. Number 4 on the far right, the photo I have up there has the bike lane that is being proposed on Riverside. That is something that would have to go to City Council for approval. And then establish pickup and drop-off locations. Put this one in here because City Council did approve for us to kind of create this drop-off pickup spot on the west end of the existing plaza. That work is still scheduled to be completed this year. As soon as we get the IDOT permit for the work that they have to do on Route 64, they're going to go over and do this work as well. There are other items that are in the study. Not all of them are something staff is really ready to take on, or some of them are more policy decisions that we would actually have to come to the City Council for more direction on. I think if you were to look through the feedback, you would see some split opinions that we would really have to discuss. So some of those would be enforcement of existing parking code violations and metered parking. I think you have a lot of people, and honestly probably a majority, of people that say no, that they do not like that as an idea. However, you do see a lot of comments in there that say that they're actually supportive of that and that they think that it would help the businesses because it would create more turnover. Okay? And with that, I won't go through all the other recommendations because they've already been presented, but I can answer any questions.
So questions back up. Go ahead. Alderperson Bessner?
Yes, thank you. The first question regarding the digital signage, it does state how much it's going to cost to implement that. Is there like a running cost monthly, yearly to just operate it, maintain it?
That I actually don't know, but the numbers that you see up there, that was provided by the consultant, and I do believe that that was the initial startup cost. Certainly, if we were to incorporate it into an app, there would be some type of monthly charge or something like that.
Okay, thank you. And then regarding signage, I know it comes up just trying to get consistency in all our signage that we have throughout the community. Obviously, the signage or wayfinding signage for parking, I'm not saying what it's going to be, but it might be a P, it might be a car. Are we going to have some of the same color palettes, that some of the same signs are downtown, that just information signs, wayfinding signs we currently have? Because there was a couple of notes in there that stated we're going to keep some signs and maybe start transitioning into new signs. So one more point about that. I have no problems with keeping the signs, but I think eventually I'd love to see all the signs consistent. You know, whether it's wayfinding, whether it's parking, whether it's downtown, except for historical things.
You're spot on. The goal would be to make them more consistent, which means some signs would be coming down. I don't know if you're referring to the great big green ones that really aren't even well, they're basically for posters now.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about what we do with those. Maybe those can be reused, but as far as the directional signage to parking and to other areas, like directing people to the Arcata or things like that, we want that to be as consistent as possible.
Okay, and then metered parking, I'm not really concerned with it all right now, so I know that's not one of your top 5. And then I'm really interested in the pickup zones and the drop-off. I think those would just be very effective, but at the same time, I'm not fully understanding, you know, the logistics of how it's going to do in a safe way and inviting way, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Yeah, you do have to be concerned about stacking with that if you have a bunch of cars and where those cars are stacking, so you just can't do it anywhere.
Right.
But hopefully there's a couple spots we can find.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I was waiting for keep going.
I said thanks.
No, okay, so thank you. I want to remind everybody, before we go on, that this is a discussion of whether we're going to accept the parking study. There are a lot of different elements of things that we're going to do in connection with this parking study. We're not talking about the whole plan right now, but we are talking about approving this parking study. So, Alderperson Wirball, we do.
Just a quick question. So if we approve this study, how quickly will the recommendations be implemented so we start seeing improvements in our downtown parking?
Yeah, so the ones that you see on the screen are the ones that we first want to tackle, and you can see that some of these are things that we could do this year. The one that probably wouldn't be implemented until next year would be the parking space availability signs, because that's the most complicated. But, you know, wayfinding, you know, the shared parking we've already started as we go on, and then, you know, the bike lanes and the drop-off points, those are potentially things.
Because the biggest thing right now for me is the digital signage for the parking deck on the west side, because it sounded like Desmond said that was going to have the biggest impact. So you're anticipating next year for that?
Yeah, we would be starting on it this year, but that's something we'll have to go to bid for. There will be engineering and then construction or installation.
Very good. Thank you.
Just one quick question. So Derek, you have a picture of the concept of that archway on the west side of the plaza. So, which, you know, I was supportive of course, as you know, we've talked about it. So are you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that until the IDOT stuff we're not going to punch through that?
Yeah, so we're using the same contractor, and we don't want to pay them to come out 2 different times. So when they come out to do the IDOT, they will come out and do the thing.
Okay. So Peter's not here. I mean, what do we, IDOT? I mean, who knows? What are we talking next year?
Sure, I can jump in a little bit. We have been working with them for a long time. We have our final engineering in, and we think we're close to approval at this point. We're just waiting for them to actually sign off on everything and give us the permit.
Okay.
Thank you for this. I have a question about the prioritization on enforcement. And I know you show that the community is split, but I guess I just have a question on like, how do you get to be split on following the law and not following the law? Like, it seems to me that if we have people that are not parking, and I understand like the signage situation is to me separate. If you're parking in the 2-hour parking for more than 2 hours, that's different to me than someone parking in front of fire hydrants, parking in inappropriate places. And I've talked to the Fourth Ward alderpersons a lot about this, that this is an issue for many of their residents, but can we prioritize that differently on this study, that this is something that is necessary in the downtown area?
Yeah, I think you're right. Those codes are there for a reason, but I do think that every community kind of has their own gauge on how strict that they want to be with them. I mean, do you want to hire another person to go around and just issue tickets and that's what they do all day? I mean, maybe. I mean, that's what some communities do. I just think it's a bigger conversation because you are going to have certain people who say, no, I don't want tickets. You're giving tickets to my customers. And then honestly, you're going to have other businesses. And I just talked to one last week that said, why aren't you enforcing these more? So I think it is something that would need to be further discussed as its own separate conversation on whether we want to do that. And we'd probably have to talk to the police department on whether that would, incur more cost than what we have right now.
And then I guess that kind of leads into my second question, which is in approving this, we're approving the overall plan, not necessarily exactly how it's being implemented.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Just real one quick comment. I agree with Jamie. I mean, I would support having a further conversation on that, to your rationale about, hey, following the law or not. Yeah, so let's talk more about it. Can we do that? Yeah, I would like to do that.
So I am looking for...
Move for approval.
Second. Okay, so I got a motion from Petrella and a second from Bessner. Please call the roll.
Bongard.
Yes.
Munn.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Bessner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
Yes.
Folk.
Yes.
That passes. Thank you. And recommendation to approve a resolution authorizing a shared parking agreement with St. Charles Public Library.
So over the past couple of months, we've been working with the library staff to come up with a shared parking agreement, which of course was something that was in the parking study. So they have about 160 parking spaces that they, at least staff is willing to let go for public parking during certain days and hours, and this is essentially when they are closed. So Fridays from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., and then Saturdays from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. They would charge us, and honestly, a pretty nominal rate. It would be 7% of the maintenance costs related to snow, pavement patching, pavement sealing. So we expect this, honestly, to be about $2,000 a year. It could be more if we have a lot of snow that particular year, but it would also be maxed out at $10,000. So we do think this is pretty minimal. That parking lot is in really, really good condition as it is. This would be a 3-year agreement with a right to terminate in 90 days. So if this is something that became too burdensome for them, or if it wasn't working for us, we could just terminate. I do know that it has come up in conversation that this is a parking lot that is a little bit further away from the downtown, but we have been communicating with a lot of the restaurants in the downtown, and this is somewhere where they would like to send their employees. So sending their employees to this location would open up more parking closer to the core of our downtown. And just logistically, this would be basically an intergovernmental agreement. So if it were to pass through committee, it would actually go and get passed by the library before it came back to City Council. And then I did just take a photo of this parking lot on Monday at 5:15, and it's completely empty. So we'd like to fill that up. That's all.
Is there any, so obviously the library board has to still approve this. Do you anticipate them making changes, or that it's going to, there's like that we're going to go back and forth, or we're pretty good?
All my communication has been with staff, and they're very confident in this. Could something pop up? Yes, and that's why more than likely this will not be omnibus, so we can give a quick update if there was a change.
Alderperson, Warble.
So I don't necessarily have an issue with this, but I'm just curious. It says hours, Fridays would be 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. and Saturdays between 5 p.m. and 2 a.m. What happens if somebody wants to go in there earlier or later? I mean, it's a public parking lot, right? I mean,
yeah, right now it is also a public parking lot, but
Right.
this is just something that the library would keep an eye on. If it's a problem for them, then they'll come talk to us. One of the things that they did indicate is that they don't have a lot of parking. I mean, they have vacancy out there right now, unless they're having like an event, there's enough space. And they actually would like more eyes in this area to avoid vagrancy. So the more people, the more cars you have out there, the less of that they think that they will have.
so the enforcement piece of it will really be upon the library.
Yeah, this really shouldn't burden staff at all. Even the snow removal and all that, they take care of that, and then they would just send us 7% of what the total costs were.
Okay, thanks.
Alderperson Mark.
You know, if you have someone going to a restaurant or bar and, you know, maybe they had too much to drink and they want to leave their car there overnight, I would hate for people to be getting towed on a Friday or a Saturday because they're being responsible. Maybe there's a way for at least Friday and Saturday where, you know, they're not going to be towing cars out of there. I don't imagine the lot's going to be full, but I would hate for somebody to have their car towed because they're one of our restaurants.
Yeah, certainly, I don't think that's going to be something that the library is going to give up. Just if it becomes a problem, they're going to want people to...
I don't want them to view this as a way to get revenue from towing vehicles though either, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'd like to see that in the agreement where cars are not
I have a question on that because I have a little bit of experience with towing, and I mean, if you don't have a spotter out there, like some of the towing logistics, I would think it would be a huge problem. I'd like to know more about that, but I also think that it'd be, I don't think it'd be a spot where you would be towing actually.
Yeah, they're not going to get any revenue from that either. That'll be directly to the tow company, but...
Yeah, but they don't have spotters too, so. Yeah, Chief, if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, he would have to have an agreement with the Illinois Commerce Commission, and that's considered relocation practices. So you'd have to contract with a private tow vendor, post those signs accordingly, and then the proprietor or the owner, in this case the library, would actually have tow companies patrol that area and then relocate the vehicle. That's highly unlikely, but signs would have to be posted in advance of that.
Thank you for speaking to that. So, down is eminent, I mean, it's a great concern to make sure, but it's a harder process to tow a car than most people assume.
Move for approval.
I've got a motion from Bonner.
Second.
Second from McKeon. So, please call the roll.
Bonegard.
Yes.
Munn.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Bessner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
Yes.
Foltz.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Ellen, before.
Oh, sure. Yes, thank you, Chair. I am just letting the record reflect I'm recusing myself from this vote.
Yeah. Also, so we on E are considering a recommendation to approve a plat of vacation for a portion of North 15th Street in regards to city-owned Dean Street parcel identified for donation to Habitat for Humanity of Northern Fox Valley. Take it away.
Thank you. The city-owned parcel at the corner of Dean and 15th Streets has been identified for donation to Habitat. At the February P&D meeting, staff reported that a plat of survey for their property found the parcel to be undersized and therefore was not considered buildable. The committee recommended moving forward with vacating adjacent right-of-way of 15th Street to provide additional land to the parcel. So a plat of vacation has been prepared, which vacates about 720 square feet of 15th Street right-of-way. This falls between the east parcel line and about a half foot from the public sidewalk. The sidewalk and then the 12-foot parkway will continue to be city right-of-way. So with the proposed vacation, the resulting parcel for donation to Habitat would be a little bit over 5,000 square feet and will therefore be a buildable lot. If the vacation is approved, staff will proceed with the property transfer to Habitat.
So we approved this in February? Did we do this already in February?
Yes, the committee provided direction to go ahead with preparing a plat of vacation.
Oh, okay. Okay. Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Wirball, second by Munn. Please call the roll.
Bonegard.
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Bessner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Kulturitis.
Yes.
Folk.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you, that passes. Moving on to F, Plan Commission recommendation to approve a final plat of subdivision for City View re-subdivision.
City View subdivision is a 4-lot, single-family subdivision located at the corner of Route 31 and Mosedale Street. One home has been constructed on Lot 1. Lots 2, 3, and 4 remain undeveloped. Stonewood Properties has requested approval of a plat of re-subdivision to reduce the size of the outlot by shifting the lot lines of lots 2 and 3 to the east, which would allow for additional square footage for the rear lots of lots 2 and 3. Required easements have been provided, and the Plan Commission reviewed the plat on May 7th and recommended approval, and staff has no outstanding comments.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Wirball, second by Gem. Please call the roll.
Bongard.
Yes.
Munns.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrula.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Bessner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Kulturitis.
Yes.
Folk.
Yes.
That passes, thank you. Derek, welcome back. Consideration to approve a resolution authorizing business improvement grant agreement with Maple Leaf Roasters. And I know that the second is very similar in the rest, but I'll let you take it from there. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, so the next two items I'm going to tackle at the same time. They are both business improvement grants for Maple Leaf Roasters and the office. So just a little bit of a background. I do have a business improvement grant. This is a grant that is put into my budget every year. It's about $50,000. This is not something that really comes across City Council's desk because this is something that I can approve up to $10,000. It is a 50-50 grant, so if someone puts $20,000 into their business, they get a $10,000 grant. That's something that I can approve myself, so I give out about 5 a year. In general, this is a grant that is meant to assist businesses with minor improvements. It has gone towards major rehabs, but really it's kind of for that business that is maybe needs to build a bigger bathroom or add a bathroom or do new plumbing, something along those type of lines. The grant does outline the ability to request an additional $15,000, so $25,000 total, but it does require City Council approval at that point, which is what the two businesses are requesting. Grant recipients in the past that have been undertaken since I've been here: Brown Butter, Alta Brewing, La Mesa, Veterans Center, Dipple Donuts, Deer Donuts, Andy's Custard, Ghoulish Mortals, and Johnson Core Fitness. All of these recipients received $10,000, and that is something in past practice that we've kind of led businesses to believe is that that really we wanted to make these grants smaller and help out more people rather than just do two $25,000 grants. So just a little bit about the businesses and the improvements that they're making in their request. So Maple Leaf Roasters, which used to be the Cave Diem, you can see the photo on the right here. This would be their new deck that they had installed. They had applied for the $10,000 grant for the new patio, which was approved and went forward. But they did run into a significant challenge when this was under construction with the foundation and the ground under the deck. Essentially, it wasn't originally properly built. That was unforeseen. A lot of problems that also triggered a review from the IDNR, which made it a little bit more difficult. And the cost of the deck went up from about $48,000 to $62,000. With this in mind, with this additional cost, the applicant is requesting that we up the grant to $25,000, and that would trigger City Council approval. For the office, this is also improvements to their patio. You can see the photo that I took just about 2 hours ago. This required light demolition, new brick pavers in the area, plumbing, electrical work, concrete work, and other miscellaneous work. In total, this was about $107,000, but the eligible costs were about $75,000. So you can see that this work was pretty substantial. It just wasn't a new deck. There was a lot of infrastructure that had to go into it. And the office is requesting the additional $15,000 due to the cost of this project. I believe both applicants are here, and I can take any questions if there are any.
So how often do you?
I'm sorry, I forgot I had one more slide. I should have mentioned that regardless of the vote, both these businesses will be eligible for $10,000 still. They've already been approved for that. The work has already been completed for both these projects. Technically, they were supposed to get city council approval before they started the work, but they're both already done. And then also, staff has actually already approved 3 grants for $10,000 this year, so this would require a budget add. So I would have to go to the finance department and get an additional $30,000 in order to fund both these grants for the $25,000. I apologize.
No, so that's actually, that's perfect.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, sorry, so that's perfect. So how often does this grant run out? So this program, if you got 50,000, there's a line at your door of people wanting to use this?
Yeah, in my 2 years here, I've used it almost in its entirety. I think last year there was someone who didn't follow through, so the grant ran out. But other than that, it's utilized well.
Any other questions?
I'm in favor of it. Motion to approve.
Wait, so we're, wait, so we're.
One at a time?
We would do one at a time, so,
I'll make a motion to approve Maple Leaf Roasters.
for the additional 55, or are you asking for approval for all 25?
You would approve all 25.
All 25, so that's an approval for $25,000, which is budget extension, so, okay. I got a motion from Weber and a second from Gem. Please call the roll.
Bongard.
Yes.
Munn.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Betzner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Sokaitis.
Yes.
Folks.
Yes.
That passes, then we'll go directly. I'm looking for a motion for the second one.
Move for approval. Second.
Okay, I've got a motion from Bongard and a second from Folks. Please call the roll.
Bongard.
Yes.
Munn.
Yes.
Gem.
Yes.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Wirball.
Yes.
Betzner.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Sokaitis.
Yes.
Folks.
Yes.
That passes. Thank you. So that is all of the business today. We do, if anybody has public comment, now is the time for public comment or anything. Please come on up. We've got a few people, so come on up. We'll go orderly and we have time for everybody. So please state your name for the record.
I'm Alex Behrens. I'm the owner of Maple Leaf. It's a coffee house, but Roasters is our Roselle location. I just want to say it's a great honor to be in St. Charles. The staff here has been really helpful. I would have said this regardless of what happened this evening. Just had a really good experience with all the staff in the city, from the police to fire department to the village officials or city officials that I've worked with. So whatever you guys are doing, finding great humans to help out businesses like mine succeed, please keep doing it because they're vital to my success. And along with all the other people, the great people here in St. Charles. So thank you very much for your time.
Well, thanks so much, and we're glad to have you here in town.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I love being part of the fabric of this community. It's the exact same sort of ethos that we've taken in our original location, Roselle, and I hope to continue to thrive here for many years.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you, Alex.
Hello.
Michael.
Your name for the, there we go. Thank
Michael
you,
Carney, 10 Illinois Street, also the owner of the office, so thank you very much for approving that. Just one comment on the parking study. The hours of the study were not favorable to businesses, and I was just wondering if there's a way we can look at that again, particularly it was, Wednesday, Saturday, or whatever. It wasn't during 4 to 6 or any time, so I would ask on the east side of the river if there's any way we could add to that study to show when there's an event at the Arcata or anywhere else, what the impact looks.
Go ahead and add later hours to the study?
Earlier, I don't believe there was anything done from 4 to 6, which is the prime time of when the Arcata has events, and it was only done on certain days, not on Sundays when the Arcata has events earlier. So I would just ask the city council to look at that, and then I think you'd see a difference in if we had a parking problem or not. And I think I'd probably be speaking for all the businesses on the east side. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Come on up, Todd. State your name for the record, please.
Hello, Todd Huel. I'm a 37-year resident of St. Charles. I had the honor of living in D.C. area for about 8 years, but moved back. And I just wanted to speak about the Grove Townhome proposal, because I spoke at the May 7th meeting, so I won't repeat anything. But just for the, to bring up some items that weren't covered today, though. I'm not sure what the definition of a park is, but one of the things I look at is we're not really adjacent to the property, about a mile away. But I look at it as if I would want to live there. And I'm myself 39 years old, no children that I know of, but I'm getting older as well. But I looked at it, if I did have children, would I want to live there? And the definition of a park, I do not see this concept plan as a park. It's a 28 feet strip of grass by about, 70 feet long. So that's one major concern. Also, if this were to be rezoned with the higher density, you're going to be having more parking and house coverage covering that percentage of the land, which I don't think is a good idea, like we discussed with the drainage. It was also mentioned that you have 42 parking spots, but they also mentioned that they could have a maximum of 96 if you included on the driveways and parallel parking. There's also been some analogies to Whittington Course or the old piano factory. My grandparents lived in Whittington Course, and I think that's a completely different development, because even though it might not have initially been zoned that way or planned that way, it was built up to become that. And I remember that area well. I rode all the way from Stonewood Drive by the country club all the way to Whittington Course on the streets of the time and eventually sidewalks. So the major concern is that this really doesn't fit any development that we currently have. The piano factory redevelopment, I think, turned out very nice, but that's downtown, it's walkable. Even the Park Place in Geneva, which I had family members live in, that's also downtown and walkable. This, you'd essentially have an island. And I think that's pretty much it. And one other item, though, too, about the plaza. I think one of the older persons was mentioning about time frame. I think we should be cognizant of that, because if you had events every single weekend, I think you want to balance that between the residents that live in that area versus the members of the public. I mean, one of the things when I lived in D.C. is it was in an urban area, and you don't necessarily want all that noise and, occurring every single weekend. And I'd also question, too, I didn't hear any specifics about actual time frame of like when those events, the earliest time those would go to, about when the cutoff time for those would be. So I would kindly request that you observe those as well. Any questions?
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Any comments from staff? Anything from city council? Or the P&D commission? With that, then I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Wirball, Trella, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.